what do you think about what the Tory government's done in terms of diminishing human rights over the last 5 years specifically? Like, what is, as a human rights lawyer and as someone who's a human rights advocate, when you look at the damage that has been done, what is your reaction? What are your thoughts? What are your
I think
warnings to people?
I think more than anything, it's a reaction of fear. I think I'm witnessing things occur now that we only studied hypothetically when I studied constitutional law. And that wasn't that long ago. That
For
was in
example,
2020. Yeah.
for example,
So, for example, what would happen if the legislature or the executive, so the government and parliament, try to oust the jurisdiction of the court? It's
mm,
arguable that the Rwanda bill does, in fact, do that. And by saying that you actually can't argue this point, you cannot argue this point, no matter how fair or reasonable, you cannot argue this point. And there was a lot of talk about parliamentary sovereignty. That was Rishi Sunak was saying this is a victory for parliamentary sovereignty. And then you get into a whole load of complex constitutional questions. But that question of whether whether Parliament can say the courts can't deal with this thing is something that no one wants answered, because unlike America, we don't have a codified constitution. We don't know the answer to these questions. The British Constitution rests on the fact that we never do want to find out the answers to these questions, because that can trigger something called a constitutional crisis, where the court says, no, you can't do this, and then Parliament says, or then the court allows it, and then our human rights are massively diminished. Either way, there's no winners. When these questions start getting asked, which they have been, there are no winners. And that's why I just think it's one of complete fear that if we continue in this direction, it's really quite a terrifying thing that they are just getting more and more brave and more willing to push the boundaries of, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years. The whole time that Britain has been a country, these things have been steadfast, completely unquestioned. And only now are they starting to be questioned, and it's shaking the very fabric of our constitution.